Hello and welcome to Bible FIFA on FIFA 22, a bit of a temporary series until I can get FIFA 23 at Christmas. A reminder of how the series works: I've put together a team full of players whose names correlate with authors of the Bible, and when I score with one of the players I can read from that relevant passage in relation to the goal time. So if I score in the 10th minute of a player, I can read from say chapter 10 verse 10 in relation to that book of the Bible. Here's the team. We've got Peter Galaski in goal, so if I score a penalty of him I can read from the book of Peter. James Tavernier on set pieces, the book of James. Lucas Klosterman, the book of Luke. Jonathan Tarr, the book of John. David Raham, I can read a psalm written by David. Then we've got Marcus, someone or other, Lorente, I can read from the book of Mark. If I score of Jude Bellingham, I can read from the book of Jude. Ryan Brewster, the book of Hebrews. Paulo Dybala, so one of the books which Paul wrote for Paulo. Matthias Cunha, a book of Matthew. And then Fernando Torres, we've got an icon, a legend, because he's old. If I score of him I can read from any book from the Old Testament of my choice in relation to the goal time. Here's how the team sets up in games, so a little bit different to how the squad looks with the cards laid out. And this is what I came up against in my first game of the first kind of match of this series on FIFA 22 Bible FIFA. And the guy against me goes 1-0 up after literally 3-4 minutes, still feeling the rust of not playing FIFA for a while. But I bounce straight back. I play in Paulo Dybala, do a classic Berber spin. I see a man at the back stick free. I play it through to him, and guess who it is? The silver non-rare man, Ryan Brewster, with a 9th minute goal to get us started for the series, to give us something to read from. But I don't stop there. Second half, Paulo Dybala makes it 2-1 with some skill that felt really ropey on a FIFA that's just, this is the one that's the ropiest. Like, the servers are clearly being prioritised on FIFA 23 because the skill there was just like, it was like Dybala had 1 chem, but he actually has I think 7 or 8. But anyway, that was 3-1, and then I made it 4-1 with Torres, so I can read from the Old Testament with him. So I have a few options for the Bible passage which I'll talk about in a sec, but that was the final score, 4-1, and without further ado, let's jump into the Bible passage of choice.
Okay then, so into the Bible passage. Now we had a few options what we could talk about, but we're going to have to go with Ryan Brewster's 9th minute goal to look at Hebrews chapter 9, because I'm not sure if we're going to score with Brewster again, and Hebrews chapter 9 is a cracking passage that I'd love us to look at. So the author of this starts off by talking about in the Old Testament time there used to be a holy temple, a holy tabernacle that the high priest used to have to go to sacrifice sort of animals there to forgive the sins of the people, because God is a holy, just, perfect God. He can't tolerate sin, right? So there had to always be some kind of sacrifice to cover and forgive the people's sins in the Old Testament. And the sacrificing of animals was kind of a constant temporary measure to forgive people of their sins. Now, it was only the high priest that was actually allowed in the temple to do these sacrifices and enter into God's presence. And the author of this passage goes on to say that when Jesus came and died on the cross, his blood sacrifice was enough once and for all for every single person for all time, that there doesn't need to be this sort of priest anymore that has to go constantly to sacrifice to forgive the sins of the people. It's a once and for all thing that Jesus has become the ultimate high priest, that his death on the cross is enough to forgive every one of their sins. Anyone who believes in him can be forgiven and can enter into God's presence, which as a Christian I'm just like thrilled about, to know that I worship this God that's died for me, that's forgiven me of my sins, that has done it once and for all. It's a free gift of salvation and grace. If you don't believe in God, I want to encourage you that the Christian faith is an awesome thing to believe in, that what God's done for us on the cross through Jesus is amazing. It means that you can literally walk your life knowing you're forgiven. When you mess up, you can just turn to Jesus and say, I'm sorry, like I've blown it again, but thank you that your blood is enough to forgive me of my sins. Thank you that I don't have to constantly sort of sacrifice animals and things to cleanse me, that actually, no, what you've done is enough. And if I put my trust in you and I'm sorry for what I've done wrong and I accept your grace, that's enough to cover you. It's unbelievable. And if you're a Christian like myself, I need daily reminding of this wonderful truth to be just so grateful to God for what he's done for me. And the end of the passage sums it up so beautifully. It says from verse 27 onwards, just as people were destined to die once, and after that to face judgment, so Christ was sacrificed once to take away the sins of many, and he will appear a second time, not to bear sin, but to bring salvation to those who are waiting for him. So it says, Jesus has done this once and for all. It's his grace is enough. His blood is enough for us. If you put your trust in him, if you're not a Christian, I want to encourage you to put your faith in Jesus to be forgiven, to know that God's forgiven you, that he's with you, that his presence resides in you in day-to-day life, helping you, and that there's an eternal home waiting for you one day in heaven. And if you are a Christian, then what a wonderful reminder of what Jesus has done for you, for his grace for you, that his forgiveness is always enough for you. And it's something that we can be daily grateful for and worship God for with jubilant joy.